Hey, Stand Up World podcast, episode 33. How are you? Thanks for coming back. Or if you're coming for the first time, I'm Mike Binder. This is Stand Up World, the podcast that time forgot, the little podcast that could, and the podcast that has no reason for being other than to save mankind. The little things. Okay, so God, there's some really good stuff. There's some good specials coming out that I really want to. Jim Gaffigan has a really great special on Amazon. I'm trying to get him on here. And there's Mark Norman has a new special on Netflix. And God, there's so much stuff coming out. I have one of my best friends in the world forever is on today. We're going to be talking about his very first special, Tim Allen, which I think is really a great special. People forget it. It's a really underrated special. It's really funny because I did a piece on it. I wrote a piece on my Substack and on standupworld.com. Standupworld.com. Patrick, you can just lay that word right down there.
You got it.
There's Patrick, my special needs producer. He's part of the CETA program for young Latin men. He's not even Latin, but he just found his way in. He's a special needs, meaning he will just find some kind of program to get wedged into show business, right? Something like that.
Pretty much, yeah. Summed it up.
But this has been probably one of the most read articles on standupworld.com. And it talks about what a underrated stand-up comic Tim is and what an underrated special this was. This is one of the first big stand-up specials on cable. Gallagher had a few, Robert Klein had a few on HBO. But Tim's was really different. Now, you have to understand, I knew Tim since we were kids. He grew up in the same neighborhood I did in Detroit. Did I ever tell you that, Patrick?
I was just going to ask more about it. You guys kind of breezed over it, but how close were you guys when you grew up? Well, he was 5 years older than me. So that's when you're kids, he 5 years is a big difference, but he was at Covington Junior High. And by the time he was at Covington, I was gone. He was a year older than my brother. And then when he was at Seahome, I was gone. But his sister was the grade above me. So I knew his sister, Becky. But when I got into stand-up, he was just getting started after I had been in it for a few years. And Dave Coulier and I became friends with him. So I've been friends with him for so many years. We've been through so much. But when he came out with this special, Men Are Pigs, show the opening. I love the opening. He just made this great opening. This is like...
The summer of 1931 proved that man was far older than had previously been believed. His brilliant theory that Australopithecus was not a direct descendant to modern man led to his groundbreaking conclusion that the possible missing link was in fact Homo habeas. Wait a minute, back up. What is that? That's not the missing link.
Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts and lock your garage. It's Tim Allen!
All right. The reason I wanted you to play this, because you'd think watching this, looking back, that this is probably okay. He came out as the star of Home Improvement and he was a big sitcom star. No, he was an unknown comic. He was a known comic in Michigan, and he had done a lot of big radio in LA when he came out and visited in LA a few times, and he got on Gino Michelini's ABC show and he did the 5 o'clock funnies. But he was not a big famous guy. He was kind of like just a hot road comic in Michigan, and Showtime gave him a special, and he shot that in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which I asked him, you saw in the interview, and where he went to college. And he, I would always say to Tim, you got to move out to LA or New York. And he didn't want to. He had been through a lot of tough stuff, as a lot of people know. He had been arrested, and he served 2 years in jail. I don't know if you knew that, but he had some. Tim has been through some tough stuff, and he was married, and he had just had a baby, and he stayed in home in Michigan, and he just pounded it out on the road. He was playing clubs, and he got that act really strong, and he like I say, he was doing a lot of radio stuff, and Showtime gave him a special. And he worked so hard on that special. And he came out, he was like a star, but he wasn't a star. He acted like a star. He dressed like a star. He set the stage like a star. He lit it like a star. And because of it, Disney gave him his own sitcom. And he knew when he had the idea for Home Improvement, he told it to me. I thought it was the stupidest idea I'd ever heard. There's a guy, and he's got a garage, a tool show. It's in his garage. Yeah, I go, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Tim. And he sent me the pilot. I saw the pilot. I said, oh, wow, this is great. But so play another piece of that. Play that first clip that, talking about having the baby.
Well, actually, I'm really happy I got to bring my baby. I have a new kid. I brought my baby, a 6-month-old little bitch from hell. She's with us now. Yeah. Daddy's girl, though. She woke up this morning, looked at me and went, ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, she did that. No, I said she's good. The worst thing about having a little girl is all the women folks show up, All the house, I get 8 hens show up after the birth. Bark, 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 bark. Bark, 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 bark. Grandma shows up, that bitch, I hate her. She's always bringing over stuff no one eats. Hey, try this. What is that, oysters and raisins? What's in that thing? It's from the old country, damn it. Would you save it? What is that stuff? Tomato jello. Ever your grandma pick? What is that? Here, try this. This shit I won't even eat. Try that. I got mad. Next thing I hear her saying is, I'm falling and I can't get up. Right. As I knocked her down.
Again, the reason I like that clip, it's a dated reference, but it wasn't at the time. But he came out, he made himself a star. He looked like a star. He just looked like a young Dick Van Dyke, he presented himself, and he knew how to sell himself. I believe at the time he was even working in the advertising business, and he's always been such a intelligent guy, well-read, and always thought things through much more than everyone else I knew, and I really feel like the detail he put into that special. Play this next clip, and I want to talk about the impact the special had.
That though, my family's horrible. I always pick on my grandma, 7 boys, 2 girls. My mom hated us. Always called us pigs. She did. She always said, "You pigs." Men are pigs, right, women? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just too bad we own everything. I'm kidding.
Actually, play the next one too. The next one is really good because it really became his signature kind of
grunt all the time. They can't do 3 things at once. Let your old man try to eat, watch TV, and talk to you. No way. Honey, you like that steak? You want some more milk? What? My mom said the only reason men are alive is for lawn care and vehicle maintenance. That's it.
So at the time, nobody had done that. Nobody was doing that, noises and those kind of facial voices like that. Maybe a little while later, Jim Carrey. This was before Jim Carrey was doing it, and it just something happened. It was, again, he lived in Michigan, didn't come out here, was on Showtime, which was not at the time, not a big comedy. HBO was the big thing. And this special, pretty soon, it was all in New York and LA. People were doing talking about this Tim Allen guy. And he was selling out big places everywhere. And, he could have gotten a sitcom anywhere, and he just, that's what I love about this guy. He's just stuck to his ground. He's always has. And if you think about his trajectory from Home Improvement, and then he did it, the Santa Claus franchise, the Toy Story franchise. Then he does a second hit sitcom, which is a major hit. They take it off the air for political reasons, but it refuses to go off the air. They put it on it goes on Fox, and it stays a hit. I think that one lasted 10 years. I mean, he does Galaxy Quest, which is one of the best science fiction comedies of all time. He's just truly one of the most underrated guys in the history of comedy, and just keeps on going, and now he's just back. He took a long time off stand-up, and now he's back and he's doing it, and he's selling out big theaters. For a long time he only played Vegas, but now he's out there doing concert halls all around the country, and he's selling out like crazy. Like it's really amazing, But I really think it all goes back to this special, his first one, and then he did a second one not long after in Ann Arbor. But he's here today, and we're going to talk about this special. Tim Allen. How are you, Tim?
I hate you so much. I'm good. So it's all
right.
good.
All right, good, man. So, we were just talking about your special, how great that special was, Men Are Pigs. And especially, I just showed Patrick, he had never seen the opening. I love that opening. Who did that opening? Who did the animation and all that? Where'd you
That
get
was Jeff Nelson, a buddy of mine that was a producer friend. I designed it, and then he did it, and I said this was one of those weird deals from going to it was a design school. That was one of my majors besides philosophy. So I matched my tie to the background. I really did there's a lot of work in lighting. I really like production, that part of it. And for a young comic to put it on there, just the background and everything, that's a lot of work for a freaking comedy special.
Not only that, even then, back then, you can see your kind of homage to Lichtenstein.
Right.
The attention to detail in that special was really evident right there. Yeah. Yep. Look at that. And at your house and everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate noticing it isn't. I do it nowadays for my concerts. I have a background to match. Sounds weird. I just like to put on a show. I remember that from years ago at the Comedy Castle. I wore a suit because it's out of respect for the audience. And I remember Janine Garofalo said, "What kind of a statement are you making?" And she was being sweet about it. I love her, that woman. And I said, well, she was in the goth thing at that time. It was wearing all black is making the statement. Naked is the statement. Putting on clothes is a statement. You can't. It just depends. I just did it because I remember the guys from Norm Crosby, Dangerfield. They all just wore suits naturally on stage. That was the only reason. But it was mostly to put on a show. I don't care one way or another about clothes generally. I'd wear jeans and a t-shirt, which I'm in right now. But for a show, I really do like putting on a production. Out of respect for the audience. Yeah.
You know, my buddy Sam Raimi, you know Sam, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Sam. He every time he directs, he wears a jacket and a tie, you know, and it was like it would like be like, Sam, it's so hot and it's such a long day. Why do you do that? He said, you know, it's just kind of respect for the actors and for the
Yeah.
tradition of filmmaking, you know. And it was so funny though. He's one of the few guys in modern guys, but I understand that for you. I mean, and I like the way you look on stage. You do. You take it serious. And but getting back to that special, I never I people don't really realize what that special did. I mean, you were, and I gave you a hard time. You were a guy who in Michigan, we grew up in the same area in the same neighborhood, and I went out to LA and everybody went to New York or LA, and you just stayed in Michigan. And I'd say you'd come out to LA for like a couple weeks and I'd go, Tim, you ain't gonna make it. You gotta come out, you gotta come out to LA, Tim.
Yeah.
You're screwing it up. And you just said, nah, you're gonna do your thing, and you did it. You shot this thing in Kalamazoo, and you guys got it on Showtime, and really in the early days too. And
Yeah.
you know, Showtime. Go
It
ahead.
was I'm going to give it the one two. I've really always viewed myself in the two divisions of stand up with this. I was a road comedian, not a audition comedian. Whatever it was in LA, all they ever wanted. I remember Macaulay from the Tonight Show. All he ever wanted was give me your best 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm on the road all the time doing middle to 35 to headliner at that time, doing 55 to 60. It was really tough getting 6 minutes out of there. So it's two different genres. And I'd come back and forth to LA and fail. I mean, I would get on stage and Macaulay would show up. He goes, "You can't do stuff about your scrotum." And I go, "Well, that was in the middle of the act. You were supposed to be there at 8 o'clock and see my first thing was for you." And he never showed up at the right time. And then did the Ice House in Pasadena, and Gino Michelini taped it for the 5 o'clock funnies, and it's like a pop music thing. No one remembered me, but they remember who's the guy that talks about lawnmowers and grunts. And instead of 5 o'clock funnies having 80 people call, they had like thousands of people call. Who was that guy at the 5 o'clock funnies that grunted? And then I started getting people noticed me, and once you start getting noticed, there's a hook. Then they remember your act. It's like last night, where my kid and I were just laughing at Gaffigan's Hot Pockets. I'm still mimicking that bit, and that maybe Jim's terrific on every account. That particular thing, Hot Pockets, it gave some momentum. In me, it was that grunting. Michelini put me on the air, and then I started selling out bigger venues and bigger venues. It got into that thing, and then Showtime came up with want to do a special. I don't remember the exact moment that happened. However, what you said, it was like the first streaming thing. It kicked butt. It put Showtime comedy on the map. It put Showtime on the map. The owners of Showtime were really generous with their compliments, not so much their money. It just was a big deal. We did two in a row. We did one there and one in Ann Arbor called Rewires America. And
But I would say the other thing that was interesting about you that people don't really know. First of all, you were one of the first guys, if not the first guy of our era, that made it without being an LA New York guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a like a John Cougar or a Bob Seger who just kind of came out from the middle of America, just doing his own thing. There afterwards, there were many comics that just made it from the road, like Foxworthy and
Right.
Gaffigan and many others, you know. But
It
you were
was
the first.
it definitely was a different thing, and of all things, Seeger saw me a couple times, and we became friends. And he gave me rock and roll advice. He just put butts in the seats, and you own it. And that's I remember that. He always go. He say go back instead of every 6 months, book yourself if possible. Come back much quicker and see if the people come back to see you, because the club will like that and not like that at the same time. And always do morning radio. And I was a big partier then. Been sober for a long time, but I wasn't then. And getting up at 5:45. I've been out till 5:45 many nights. Up at 5:45 was a new thing. I did listen to Seeger. I did morning radio, and you eventually get those guys pushed it. And morning radio was a big deal. I still think it's a big deal. And I eventually got where I'd go back to the punchlines, which was a chain really, and I would be able to fill it up. And then you kind of own it when you can fill up at least Friday and Saturday nights. And they said on the road, that's all it is. LA, you never know what you're doing. You're in there doing 6-minute bits or 3-minute bits because they want to put you as a special in comedy. And that, when I did it, the timing, lucky timing, good timing, whatever it is. Roseanne was doing, Cosby had kicked ass. All of a sudden, it was comedians they were looking at. So they wanted to see you in, the improv, that stage. I never liked that room. Too much light and it was just weird. And that's where they wanted to see me. And that was where, by that time, it was too late because they said I'm already selling out big venues. I'm already on Showtime's list. And, cable wasn't that big. And that's when Disney saw the Showtime special at a Disney retreat. And Katzenberg and Eisner came to the improv. And I wasn't really working the improv, but they gave me a 20-minute set. It didn't do very well, but they didn't care. They said, we saw the Showtime special, the one you're talking about, Men Are Pigs. It really was a good thing. I thought about that, talking too much, is at that time of my life, I was rebelling against, my experience has always been, I've been bossed around by women, bosses, women, my mom, my aunts, my grandmas. I turned in college. I used to go to feminist classes to meet women. I clearly met women that were more like me, that liked other women in feminism. And I wish there was a class called masculinism. And that's what I turned into in college. Prior to all this, what I wrote about, that I always felt men were undervalued, the working kind of guy, plumbers, electricians, all that. It's come to be my life. I'm not talking about corporate executives and colonels in the army. I'm saying that men get pushed around a lot and really don't complain about it. As I've always said, if it's a cruddy job, men will do it. And all growing up, we had to do all the cruddy work and listen to very, very powerful women tell, at that point, 7 boys what to do. And so I grew up very different point of view, respect, mostly afraid of women because what they're capable of. And that's where my whole act was, poking that big bear that you don't realize how much power you got. And I said this to women, that's my act anyway. I'm sure you can have 2 sides to every story.
Well, what was interesting, and this is what I was going to say, why I thought that special became so popular all around the country. It went from Detroit to New York and bounced to over. All the executives in LA were talking about it. Men Are Pigs. And it's, of course, the world is in a different phase now, but it was the first one where, kind of like we're saying, we're talking about men, teasing men, but by the same time saying like all the shit that men deal with. And it was the first kind of, it was kind of freeing for men to hear somebody on stage saying all that stuff and talking about it's okay just to be a man, you know?
That's what I looked at it when I was back then. It was, instead of talking down to women, how I felt is the first time I'm talking up to them. Like my grandma and my mom, very powerful women, and it was very rare to stand up to them. In your head, you just did what they told you to do, and eventually, towards my relationship with those two women changed, where I became not a subordinate, but a friend of my mom and my grandma, and would listen to the way they tell you what to do sounds like they're demeaning you. And that's just that's their frustration, or the way women talk about, especially stuff they don't have sometimes a blind spot. And my mom had a blind spot for mechanical stuff, and she'd demean the work because I maybe made her feel demeaned because she didn't understand. So she'd force us to do that and make us feel like little servants, because you do stuff like this. I'll do the important stuff like raise you and feed you and all that. And at one point, I really adored the mentors that I had as men that were kind to women, respectful to women, and afraid of women. But they were men and they weren't afraid. And God knows these days, that opening line in that thing, I laugh at, because it reminds me of watching Blazing Saddles. I said, men are pigs, right, women? And they go, here, come on, men are pigs. Oh, well, my mom called us little pigs. And men are pigs, right, everybody? They go, yeah, it's just too bad we own everything, huh? And it was this, that's the smart ass in me that is angry at how minuscule or diminished I felt in a big family of boys that was ruled properly and firmly by strong women, because the men had either passed or moved on or whatever. And it was always I've told this to anybody, I've really only had women bosses in LA. Between ABC was women bosses when I was there, Disney, Fox, and I don't find women bosses as corporate identities any different than men, except they use their words better. They don't call people, I remember one of the executives at Fox just called the men at the meeting, they weren't their higher selves in that meeting. I went, wow, what a great way to, what a great way to say a bunch of assholes or pricks. Instead it was, and the women in my life have an ability to be kind and firm at the same time, much to be learned by that. On the other hand, I've had when I was growing up, it was brutal what we were called as boys. And I always reacted to it. We're not that bad. All of us aren't abusive and horrible men. And it's just not like that. There's a lot of real men out there there's a lot of real men I know in my life that two of my best friends don't like football and can't fix anything. So it's always, and then we did a show for History Channel with April Wilkerson. She was a builder, and this is one of the finest builders and fixers I've ever met, and a very interesting female at the same time.
It's really funny because I'm lucky that I have this different view of you than most people have, because I remember you. I was a little kid. You were the first person I've ever knew that had a driver's license, had a car in our neighborhood. I remember thinking, because I think you're 5 years older than me or something like that. And when you're a little kid, that's such a big difference. And I remember you got your driver's license and you had a car. And I remember thinking, Tim can drive. Tim did. Tim can drive, man. And you and all your friends, Rob Cowan, you had cars, and we were on our bikes driving down the street. And you guys would drive, and I remember you would work on those cars, and I remember thinking, these guys are so cool and so old. But I remember you were old. Because you were 16. We were 11, and I remember thinking, you were a real guy, man. You were a real car guy, even back then. And it was probably your parents' car, But that was my first memory of you. You were, Becky Dick's older sister, and older brother. You weren't. Yeah, that's right. You were her older sister at the time. That was before.
But at the time, yeah, I changed. I really went. I went through some remarkable changes then.
You really did. And by the
Yeah,
way, you've
'cause
handled your
I had
transition well.
ovaries then.
Yeah,
I had a set of ovaries. Boy, I'll tell you what.
you're warming a pack on a fanny
Yeah.
pack. Actually,
I had one ovary under my arm. I had that for a while.
No, I don't. Did you go to Bloomfield Village, or you were past that by that point?
I had moved from Denver. I went to a school in Denver. My own man was killed in a car wreck, and we moved back
Right.
to my mom's family in outside of Detroit. Well,
Yeah, and so you started by then at Seahome is where you first.
no,
went,
at Covington Junior High.
Oh, Covington. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
where everybody thought I was retarded because in Colorado you wear white socks with Converse. That's the cool thing in Colorado. In Michigan, they thought I had a mental problem because I wore white socks, and that was enough to judge me and treat me poorly for quite a while at Covington. My mom would not let us wear black socks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember people at Covington would judge people very harshly for their socks. It was a problem.
Like I'll be judged because I said the word retarded. I'm sure it's a different word. It's called mentally challenged.
No, you're not with you. You're retarded. There's no challenge about it. You're full on retarded.
Full on retarded.
with ovaries.
Yes.
But no, man, I have to say, I just every time because I've been dealing so much these last couple of years, looking at all the specials, from Pryor's special to all the early Carlin specials, and I just think Men Are Pigs is such an underrated special and such a great special. And who directed it? Ellen Brown directed it, right?
I thought it was a shorter name, but it could have been Ellen Brown. She's a short. What's funny when you mentioned that in the professional world, I just thought about this yesterday watching golf and tennis, and I like women's basketball. They play differently. They don't look at them as a gender when they're athletes, and same with girls that like going fast in cars. There's a couple girls in the small town that are really good with Ferraris and stuff, and I never treat them any differently. It's one of those things. And Ellen Brown, I think you're right. That comes to mind.
It was Ellen Brown. But it was that whole special. It was just, I just think that, and plus, how many people loved it at the time? Everybody was doing that.
I know, and they ended up making a TV show, Home Improvement, out of it. That the grunting, and also it was so well prepared. Ellen did such a great job of segmenting and working with me, and I know how to get things going. And it was only 38 minutes, I think, and I did like an hour and a half, and we were to clip it because I knew exactly when to stop because I knew when she was going to edit it. Very important to me in comedy specials. You cut to the audience and you cut back and you're in the middle of the next bit. And I was able to time it for her. I'll get out of that whole thing about that was kind of inappropriate. It's just kind of dirty material that when it wasn't thought provoking at all, as if the rest of it was. And we timed that. It looked like it was a piece. And I saved the second segment for the second one we did, which is Rewires America, which we shot in Ann Arbor.
Why did you shoot this one in Kalamazoo, Michigan?
That's where I went to
college, right? Yeah.
I went to college there, yeah. And also I saw Leno there, met Leno, got an autograph from him. He performed at that same beautiful theater there. But you reminded me, I saw Carlin live, and a life-changing experience I saw. It wasn't even live. The first time I saw Pryor, it was the sunset. And he wore I think the red outfit. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And it was prior to him getting burnt. And it was a movie, but they premiered, it was like a premiere, and the Fox Theater packed. I don't think I've ever had a life-changing experience. I saw Jay Giles' band at the Cinderella Ballroom in Detroit, turned into the platinum record, Full House. And I was the concert promoter for my university, which at that time was Central. And I got Jay Giles' band after watching him in that show. That was life-changing to see a live band that you finished and there's like dead people in the audience. They dance so much. That's the experience I fold into that experience with Pryor. I was sick to my stomach. I was laughing so hard. I actually put my hand up a couple times, you know, as though the guy in the movie could go, "Oh, I got the little light skinned fella down there is having trouble." That was life changing. I said, if I could ever do anything like that to a crowd, and a movie, he wasn't even there. It was that live Son of Sunset. It was life changing. And
well, I'll tell you, man. I would tell you, which was really cool. You know, my son Bert, who's 29, he watched you do about 45 minutes to an hour not long ago, which was really interesting because he's known you his whole life, grew up with you as just a friend of his dad's, been to your house 100 times, but never really saw you as a comedian, you know. And he sat there and he was laughing so hard. He was laughing so hard. And when we left, it was like, he was like, Dad, he got it so much. You know, you're talking about your grandmother and your mother. And it was like, he just was so happy. And he was same thing. He was like, man, I just wanted to let him know while he was on stage how hard I was laughing, you know, and it was really great to see a young guy get all your comedy so much. And
you told me this story, and you have no idea what that meant to me, because I generally don't. I was raised by a mom who called everything fake praise. Says you don't need to have people tell you did a good job. You know, and if you did a good job, you know, you don't need people telling you, because half the time it's, hey, like in good golf shot, I golf with some guys. I go, it wasn't a good, it was in the weeds. Well, you tried. I go, eventually I don't like when people say good shot. My assistant for many, many years, still with me, has never seen my show. Did what your son did. She came up, there was girls' night. I said, why do you guys, they all want to come see you at rehearsal, which I do at the Laugh Factory before I go on the road. And she came in, and at Greenblatt's at the time, went upstairs after the show, and she just looked at me. She looked like she had a fever. I said, what's the matter? She goes, I had no idea you had this skill set. I mean, I said, well, how do you think you get paid? No, none of the staff a lot of my staff have never seen any of the stand-up. And it had that same thing that your son did. And it meant the world to me that your boy said it, and that it resonated with him.
You know, and now you're going out, you're like playing like big theaters and really like a lot, because you didn't for a long time, did you? You played Vegas.
Once it got to when it got to 9,000 to 10,000 seaters, it's a payday. It's not very pleasurable. I can't get any roll audience. You know, you get 200 to 300 in the clubs, you can kick ass, and there's sweat and people laughing so hard. You get as many. The biggest I can do now, you know, it's all about sales, is about 5,300, which I think Denver is. That said, the balconies, it's 5 balconies, and they're all aimed towards you. So it's there. There's still, that's about as big as I like to do. You get the big arenas. I stopped the big arenas right in the middle of home improvement for a variety of reasons, not the least of which I swear a lot. I don't talk about debauchery. Disney was really weirded out because I'd go on the road and I'd have to stay in the trailer. This is for 18-year-old and above. I don't want to explain any of these jokes to kids. And I did, the first show I did was in San Francisco in Home Improvement, and the whole audience was kids. I was up there going, I had to change fuck to frick and shit to shoot. And sometimes when you have sexual relations with another person, it was horrible. And then I had to go online and tell people, if you're annoyed with me, then I will give you money back. And some people said I had to explain this to my kids. And then I stopped doing big arenas, home improvement, movies, books, all that stuff. I got off the road for probably 5 years, and then decided to go back on it. As I talked to a couple other comedians, it's not quite as easy as it sounds to go back. And as I went back, I felt like when I saw Rod Stewart, you really don't want to see Rod Stewart do anything but Maggie May. And when I went back on stage after years, it might have been more than 6 or 7 years, everybody wanted to see the same grunting, and I'd already finished Home Improvement, and I just didn't feel like doing that. I can talk about doing that, but I wanted to move on, and it took literally three good years struggling with the first one to even get 30 minutes of new material at the same pace I did the other one. And luckily, with some great help from one of my old comedy writers, Kim Flagg, who's still with me, we just reformulated, and Messina, my manager, we all put the way they do is they come and watch me work out and say, take all that out. That's too old. This is too new. And after some struggle, I got my stand-up back. And now it's as much as I want to go out. I mostly compete with Leno. I can't believe how much Jay goes out. He's gone all the time. It's not about money. It's about, I love what Pryor did to me and I can do to audiences that you have for 50 minutes. This is an old philosophical argument. I think it's Wittgenstein. If I got his name right, anybody knows it. He's a language philosopher that comes under the conclusion we don't really know what anybody says. What the meaning to them is the same meaning to you. He gave up philosophy because he thought it's ridiculous. And then the other day, it was like a month ago, I said, wait a minute. I happen to be in a profession that I know the audience knows exactly what I mean because they're laughing exactly where I want them to laugh.
That's right.
So comedy completely broke all the rules to me. They may not know exactly what I mean, but my God, they're laughing exactly where I would laugh at this. That means I link up, and I don't like the road work. I'm still ironing my own clothes. I still have to take 2 suits and get in hotel rooms. That part is getting old. I've been doing it for 45 years, and I said, yeah, that part I'm not as. Yeah, I love getting on stage. I love walking out on stage. I love going, oh God, they're loving this, and if they love this is just the bunt to the home run coming.
Right.
I love it when they laugh at this one. Oh shit, wait till they see what's coming. And I love that feeling of what Pryor did to me, to see people get, they can't stop laughing. What a gift it is to be able to do that. And the residual, I get so much joy out of that. And I only say this, I know my agent's going to go, no, that the money is not, I'm not going to do it for free because that's not how things work. The pay is the joy that I'm getting from the audience.
Well, let me ask you something else. Are you going to do another special?
Thought about it, really want to do, I don't even want to give it away because there's things I've never done in a special that I'd like to do. And that my only problem with it is it kind of burns up your material. And my material is very valuable to me. Once you do a special, then I can't really do that on stage that way anymore because I don't do Men Are Pigs. I don't do any of that material, although I feel like a Deadpool moment. I like to break the wall and go back and do some of those great bits. I talk about the grunt. I don't do it. And some of that material, you just said it. I was watching Men Are Pigs, just the opening 12, 15 minutes because it came up on YouTube. Some of that stuff is really lucky, amateurish, and also I had a gift for timing. Some of that stuff is really well timed. And I wouldn't mind doing my own act again. A funny bit, Rich Jenny, who passed away, we both were on the road at the same time. We switched acts one night. And it's a indication of how well crafted it is. He could do my act pretty much other than the grunt, and I could do his act, which is brilliant up until a certain point. And I said, I wonder if I could it would be a funny bit where they cover bands where I'd get up on stage and go, I'm going to do a little Jim Gaffigan followed by some Pryor, and I want to finish up some Jerry Seinfeld. I hope you enjoy it. Then just have comics do other comics material.
That's really
and see if it's possible to do it. I'm not doing that. I said no.
No. Well, but so you think if you did the 50 minutes that you're doing now on the road, you couldn't do it anymore? If you put a special,
I don't know. What's happening now, which is wonderful, is I've now got, I have a timer light. So I like Vegas wants you to do 58 minutes. I mean, that's what they do. And then I've now got, I've been stretching my opening, which is current events and whatever's on my mind, because I'm lucky enough, sobriety has given me the confidence that I'm funny without alcohol and drugs. And it's taken 26 years to really realize that. So I now just riff. And all of a sudden, I'm 58 minutes into my time and I'm only halfway through my act. So I literally have 2 specials. I could do a 50-minute special. I'd like to do it, and then I'd like to add some really weird. In college, I was a huge fan, still am, of Laurie Anderson, the performance artist, and she always had a big video behind her. That's how she played with all this stuff. And in college, I was so amazed by her, and I said, I'd love to do that, where it is my comedy, but I'm also referring to the actual event. And I thought about it'd be a different way to do comedy. The difficulty is Pryor's sense of timing, which I absorbed. Don't copy it because it's his. Is the pace. In order to refer to a video, it would be very, very challenging to keep. I like rock and roll comedy. I don't like any breath. I don't like any space. I don't go get a drink of water. It is frickin' rock and roll. Bang, bang, bang. Good night.
Right. Yeah, no, I do. I love it when you're on a roll and you just go. And last week I had this guy who I really think you should check him out. This kid, Jeffrey Asmus. He's brand new. He's a young kid. He's 30 something. And he just put his first special up, but he just boom. He just slings jokes one after the next. And he's really decadent, you know, but, and I like that. I just like, you know, and I think you're right. You know, you put up a video and that's going to slow you down, but it's a different thing, you know?
I always thought it would be funny. I'm giving away too much. I've always thought it'd be funny to completely disrupt your comedy acts with a huge dance number that I'm included in. For no reason, just non sequiturs. Just right in the middle. I did one for a comedy awards thing. I didn't sell it because I was uncomfortable dancing with this whole troupe of tuxedo guys that lifted me up. And if I'd sold that, it would be weird to just break up the comedy act and then just the dance number ends and you go, okay, thanks guys. And then just right back doing comedy. It just completely.
Well, I'll tell you, I just opened for Sandler. We played Detroit. We played the Little Caesars Arena. And he does that. He really breaks it up with shit up on the screens, and he sings songs but he does it in a way that his pace is so natural and organic to him,
right?
That it's of him, you know. And he does the Chris Farley song, and he's such his own guy, you know. But I really feel like you can do that if you just decide that's coming from you, you know. It's just, you can't do it if it's not just totally organic.
Right. And I said, the smart ass in me just likes to mess things up. It's like I break up my own act. Like I'll go with my nephews to see superhero movies, and eventually everybody tells me to stop. I do a whole routine about it, that my family interrupts people all the time. Interrupted people at church, the sermon, they go, hey, no, come on. And to interrupt your own act, to break the wall a la Deadpool, is an interesting idea to me. And I said, the reason I out of nowhere now, I'm stealing Gaffigan, who did a whole piece. I don't know what it was. He started making, when he does that high voice, he all of a sudden was wondering why he's doing the high voice. He goes, why am I even doing this? And it's hysterical to me. And I've done it before where I said, I'm mimicking the conversation I'm having in my head ahead of time. And I said, doing a special, I got a Netflix offer a long time ago. I did the Ryman Theater, which is a life-changing experience in Nashville, based on who played that room, and I rocked that room. I was on cloud nine, and Netflix, but they own your material. It's a little spooky, you know.
Well, not anymore. They've changed that.
It still goes on to streaming, and I don't know where it goes. And I have
they changed their whole structure. They pay less, and you get it back after a year.
Yeah, and what they did is, without being sour grapes, they paid so less that I said, you saw me sell out the Ryman many times, and I rocked it. And the guy acted like I just came up with that. It was really weird. It's just what you're saying. I did one of the first successful sitcoms based on, or stand-up things on Showtime, and he was unaware of all that. And I said, it's partially kind of this weird thing that you bring up that I don't like, and I'm not comfortable blowing my own horn. That said, that Showtime special is very well produced, very well directed, and it's very funny. And people know about it. The art form aficionados don't know about it. It was kind of weird, and it wasn't a pathetic offer.
The guy you're talking about is not the art form aficionado, believe me.
Well, but it was just weird that the offer was so subtle. I'm trying to be nice about it. That I went, you're kidding, right? They came up with as though I just started doing comedy, and it was weird, and it was
well. In their defense, you got out of comedy for a long time at the point where that comedy kind of got hot again, and they got hot, And listen, I know I got out of comedy for years, and then when you start again, but you're now so full bore into it now and so selling out everywhere you go. I think it'd be great for you to do a special. I don't think it has to be Netflix,
No, I would like to do it just to produce another special. I love producing those specials. I love setting up the artwork and the cameras and doing what I can, and then doing my job. I love both parts of that. And I said, I've got ideas about it. I've written them down. It's funny that I'm doing this right now, is writing up due to I don't even know if we're allowed, am I allowed to write? Because it's the writer's strike. I'm not sure.
Yes,
comedy doesn't have really any agents.
No.
We've never had
your act. No,
we've never had a union.
No, you can write for your act.
I'm not writing, Mike.
You can write for your act. I'm going to steal it anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's really funny. That great joke that Fraser does about football.
Yes.
He has this great joke, and I told him, I love that joke. He goes, yeah, Tim loves it too. I go, yeah, I know. Tim told me he loves it. He goes, I go, well, don't give it to Tim. Give it to me. He goes, I'm giving it to anyone. I'm giving it to Tim.
Yeah. About the women refs.
Yeah. All right, listen, man, I love you. And I'm going to show some pieces of that Men Are Pigs on this episode. And I've written about that special a lot. And I think it's one of the best it's in my top 10, top 5 of the best specials all time, and I think it's, I urge people, if you're watching this and you see this, go and check that special out. It's on YouTube, right?
I think so. To be honest with you, I don't even know. And of course, there's nothing in it for me at this point. I don't know how that works.
It's on YouTube. Yeah.
We don't have any union, or we don't have any way to, we're burlesque. I think that was the last union comics had. There's no one protecting us. People could steal our material. It's a pretty pathetic thing.
You can get it on YouTube. You can find it, and you can get it on DVD. But it's on YouTube. You can find it and get it. There's a lot of great pieces in there. So check it out. And Tim, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Mike.
You know how much I love you, and
love you too, man.
You're a good man.
Be funny.
Best ever. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks. All right. There's my buddy Tim Allen. Go see him live if you get a chance. You will, I promise you, you will not regret it. He puts on a hell of a show. This guy, he whines and complains about everything, but he loves what he does, and he loves his fans. I'll tell you, every time I'm with him at a club or a restaurant, you just got to stand there while he gets mobbed by people that want his autograph and have albums and pick things. But he does it, and he's so nice about it. But people loved him. and he won't admit it. He loves his fans, but what he loves being a great comedian, and you see that when you watch him perform. He really gives it up for his show, and he's great. He's a great comic, and it's really true. My son, I loved the way my son finally saw it. And he just turned to me and goes, Dad, he is so funny. I go, yeah, duh, or really? Anyway, that's it. That's episode 33. We got a great guest next week. I'm not going to tell you who it is because I want to surprise you, but it's a great show next week. You can get us on Twitter, on Apple, on Spotify, on Stand Up World, on my Substack, and on my neighbor's garage, of course. We flash it all night long, nonstop, on a loop, just to wake the fucker up. Have a great week. I love you. Thank you so much for your support.